Welcome to the Art of Money podcast with Art McPherson.
And thanks for checking out the Art of Money podcast. My name is Mark Owens alongside Art McPherson and Luke McCarty. All the information for the McPherson Financial Group, you can find it at theartofmoneyradio.com. Got a quick question about 401ks, because I know that's what a lot of the clients, a lot of the listeners call and have questions about is their 401k, because there was a survey by USA Today that revealed that when adults fill out the benefits of a new job, they spend less than 1 minute reviewing any 401k choices. So, Art McPherson, why do we gloss over things like that could have such long-lasting effects of our retirement? Why do we kind of almost ignore that process?
I think people typically are a little bit in the set it and forget it mode. Mm-hmm. You know, they'll make a decision on how they've got the money allocated, and they're not savvy enough to realize that just by being proactive and paying attention to it a little bit, like looking at it once a quarter even, can make a big difference in your overall long-term interest rate. I had a gal come in for the first time. She became a new client, and one of the things we looked at, she literally had a 401k where she picked it when she signed up with the company, never changed her investments for 25 years. And I was like, wow. So I think a lot of it is that, you know, we hook up, we sign up, and we're just not bothered. You know, I don't want to mess with it. And people are just trying to work and do their thing, and life is happening, and, you know, taking care of the kids and the grandkids and all that kind of stuff. So people tend to really start focusing on it within that retirement red zone. When you're within that 5 year, you're really looking at possibly retiring, and you want to make sure that $1 million, $2 million, $3 million in your 401k stays $2 or $3 million and doesn't go in half on you. So I think people get more serious there, and they realize the value of asset allocation and diversifying and so forth.
And we also see, you know, people who make mistakes with their 401ks, right? We'll have a downturn in the market, and people get emotional and lower their contributions to the 401k. Well, that's the opposite of what you want to do, right? We also see when we're at all-time market highs, right, you're feeling good about yourself, so you add more to the market. Now, adding more to the market for the long term is never a bad idea, but, you know, trying to time it, trying to get emotional, that can cause issues. You know, we see people, you know, with, taking a 401k loan out of their 401k, right? Mm-hmm. So you take the loan out, and as long as you're working, right, you can pay it back, you can pay yourself back. But if you stop working and retire, most of the time you have to pay it all back, or it's a taxable event. So those are some of the mistakes we see. You know, some people aren't aggressive enough. Some are too aggressive for too long. So, there's reasons why you should look at your 401k, and there's reasons why you should get help and just ask questions.
Yeah, I think one of the biggest mistakes I see, Mark, is people will want to pay their house off, and they've got a couple years left. So it's not a huge number. You know, it might be $30,000, $40,000, $50,000, but they are only paying a small interest factor. You know, if you really look at what their interest rate is being charged, you're at the end of your mortgage. Very little of that is interest. It's just pretty much principal. But people will break money out of the 401k, and they forget all that money adds on top of their other income, and you're taxed at the highest rate. So if you're at $150,000 a year, you've already paid 12% on your income. You've already jumped in the 22% bracket. Now, by this distribution, you're going to jump in the 24. You're going to lose 24% of every dollar you pull just due to tax. And they forget that. And by us just being a little bit more careful on the distribution side, maybe you pay it off, you know, you take a lump sum in December, then you take another one in January, you spread that over 2 calendar years, help keep you from jumping brackets, things like that. We see a lot of mistakes made on that distribution side. We know people want their house paid off. We just want to make sure we're doing it efficiently and tax efficiently.
Yeah, and that brings up another point too. If you retire early, right, if you retire and you're, before 59 and a half, be very careful that you don't roll all the money out of the 401k into an IRA, right? Leave some money back in the 401k, because there's a 55 rule that says if you leave your company at 55 or after, you can take a 401k distribution and avoid the 10% penalty. Mm-hmm. If it's in an IRA, you have a 10% penalty till you're 59 and a half, unless you go through some hoops, and it's called a 72T distribution we can help you with, but we'd rather avoid that, because you can only do that once. So just be careful on when you do leave your company. If you do retire early, just make sure you know how how you're going to be taxed when you take money out and what account makes the most sense to take it out of.
321-425-8550. We talk about the importance of an estate plan and how, unfortunately, we keep putting it off. We asked a 60-year-old listener if she and her husband have drawn up a will or an estate plan.
We had this conversation the other day. We're like, we have to do this now. Because we're always like, we're young, we have time. All right, yeah, we'll do it next month. And then we don't do it. When you're younger, you think nothing is ever going to happen to you. You'll do it in the future. You'll do it in 4 years. You'll do it in 5 years, and you don't do it.
Is that a common response you hear about estate and legacy planning?
For the younger group, yes. Yeah. But I mean, one of the things that Luke and I do with a lot of our clients when they become a client at McPherson Financial Group is making sure we're going over it. The first thing we look at is, are your beneficiaries correct? And a lot of people have not, we had talked about it earlier about not changing their investments. Well, guess what? They also forget to change their beneficiaries. So you may have to have somebody that's gone through a divorce and they still have their ex-spouse as a beneficiary. So you need to make those changes. So that's one of the first things we do. But we also have 2 attorneys here that work with us here at McPherson Financial Group. And we have attorneys here in Brevard County that we use. And we're constantly making sure that our clients' wills are up to date, that any trust that they have, they're up to date, the language is up to date. And we can help facilitate that all in-house here at McPherson Financial Group and make sure that our clients are going to have what they need. And, you never know what's going to happen today with COVID. It's a different environment. It's a different world. You can be healthy one week and then not healthy the next week because of COVID. So it makes sense. We had a phone call this week from a client who was very healthy and then now they're not. They were making sure that some of their estate planning documents were up to date and that the beneficiaries were up to date. And we were making sure that their beneficiaries were notified. And they actually had not even been notified that they were going to be a beneficiary. So we were kind of talking about that at our team meeting this week and just taking care of things like that so that when our clients, if they do have an end of life event or they have a transition event, that those things are done correctly.
And Luke, if somebody comes in and you're doing that deep dive into their portfolio and you're talking about estate planning, we always say it's good to have your spouse with you. But when it comes with a will or an estate plan or a legacy plan, is it important to have the kids with you as well?
It depends how much you want the kids to know. Some of our clients don't want the kids to know anything, depending how old they are, of course. But and then some of our clients are open books, and their kids come to meetings, and we just have open discussions about mom and dad's assets. So I think it depends how much you want them to know. Now, it does make sense to tell them, if you have a trust and they're in the trust or they're in the will or these are my wishes, they're written down. Here's where this document is. We always get a copy of our clients' estate plans just so we have it in case the kids come to us. But, everybody's a little bit different when it comes to what they let their kids know. But I say if you want them to know, I always, advise you to tell them.
Right.
And there's a lot of misinformation. I think a lot of people get confused. So they'll do a will and they'll say, I want my house to go here and I want my investments to go here and my insurance policy to go here and my annuities to go here. But what they forget is the beneficiary arrangements that are on those documents. If they're not the same as the will, a beneficiary arrangement can supersede what your directives are in a will or even a directive in a trust. So it's just making sure that those are all pointing the right direction. So if you want it to go to the trust, everything needs to say that it goes to the trust. If you want it to go to your children or your grandchildren specifically, you need to make sure it says that, because just because it says it in your will doesn't always mean that'll happen, because a beneficiary arrangement or agreement will supersede a will that had been done prior. So you have to be very careful with that. So those are some of the things that Luke and I are very careful with our clients, making sure all that stuff is lined up the way they want it.
Have you seen that before? The spouse, they get divorced, but their name's still on there, and then somebody passes away, and then you have to get lawyers involved, and it's just adding more headache to an already frustrating situation.
Usually we don't have to get too much on the lawyer side, but I would say we see 10 to 15 cases like that a year, where beneficiaries are wrong, the directives are wrong, and trying to fix it before we can't.
Yeah.
Because once it is done and the person has passed away, there's nothing we can do about it. Even if the will says 50% of that money was supposed to go here, if the beneficiary says it goes there, it's going to go there.
That number is 321-425-8550. Always online at artofmoneyradio.com. And Art, Luke, before we get out of here, I want to talk about annuities for a second, because there's a stat that says by 2024, we will reach peak 65. Have you heard that term before?
I haven't heard peak 65, but I can assume it's where What, the most people in the country are 65 or older?
There it is.
There it is. Bingo, bingo.
Yeah, peak 65, when more Americans will turn 65 than at any other time in history, and they could also be leaving the workforce. So a lot of people looking to convert their nest egg to their retirement funds. Is now the time to look at annuities to help meet this goal if you're in that peak 65 movement?
I think it is. You always want to be open to different types of investments. You know, for example, the first couple of weeks of this year, right, in January, the market, depending which market you're choosing, right, the S&P or the Dow or the NASDAQ, right, were down, 8 to 15%. Well, we had clients that have, some investments in those, instruments and stocks, right, we have with bonds, but their total portfolio was only down 3 or 4%. Because if you add in things to your portfolio that aren't subject to market rate risk, right, aren't subject to interest rate risk. When we think of interest rates, we just think of bond price fluctuation. Well, we're getting a lot of stock price fluctuation with just the talk of the Fed with interest rates. So there's a lot of risk out there where you just don't want all your eggs in the stock market, right? Even if you're the best stock picker in the world, or your favorite stock, like mine is Google. Well, Google's down this year because of, the interest rate talks and growth stocks getting hit. So when you think of that, market's down 8 to 12%, if you were a client here, you'd be down 3 or 4. Feels pretty good. So we use different tools in the portfolio, and one of those is annuities.
Basically, what we don't want to do with when you're talking about investments or your portfolio is not having the risk the way you want it. Everybody loves it when the market's doing well. Everybody's like, oh, I want to take more risk. I want to do more. But as soon as we get a correction like this, that's where your real risk tolerance comes out. So if you're looking at your portfolio and it's down $40,000 or $50,000, and you don't like that, well, that might be time to de-risk. So that's one of the things we'll look at with our clients, and we'll look at we have a thing on their website called Riskalyze, and we evaluate that with them, and we want to make sure that we are addressing risk properly and they are at a risk level that they're comfortable with.
Thanks for listening. Want more from Art McPherson of McPherson Financial Group? Find us online at artofmoneyradio.com. We are an independent financial services firm helping individuals create retirement strategies using a variety of financial and insurance products to custom suit their needs and objectives. Securities offered through World Equity Group, Inc., member FINRA and SIPC, a registered investment advisor. Investment advisory services offered through ProStatus Group, LLC. McPherson Financial Group and ProStatus Group, LLC are separate entities and are not owned or controlled by World Equity Group, Inc. Exposure to ideas and financial vehicles discussed should not be considered investment advice or recommendation to buy or sell any financial vehicle. Past performance is not a guarantee of future results. Investments can fluctuate and when redeemed may be worth more or less than when originally invested. Investment financial professionals are not licensed in all 50 states. Art McPherson is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. Please consult with your attorney, accountant, and or tax advisor for advice concerning your particular circumstances. Annuity guarantees rely solely on the financial strength and claims paying ability of the issuing insurance company. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through Arthur McPherson. Florida Insurance License number A174725.
Today's show has been a work of art.